So let's move on to step number 2. And this is where you need to think about all of those different elements that bring together your business. Right, so for this exercise, or this step, I need you to go through and think about the company that your group has chosen. Okay, and every time I'm going through and mentioning a point, I'd like you to go through and think about your company for this course, and how you can go through and get information that helps you get the entire picture of that company. Okay, so this is all about the business model, right? Understanding your business. So let's start off. What is a business model? It's a term that's used a lot in the media, and quite often it means the strategy of the organization. But a business model is a little bit larger than that. So that's the starting point. I'm going to go through and show you 1 or 2 clips from the media that talk about using this term business model. Okay? So about 18 months ago, there were all sorts of articles in the financial media about Goldman Sachs. And if you go through and look at this particular example here, the sentence is that Goldman Sachs has been undertaking some soul searching over its business model, heavily criticized. And in the last 18 months, it's actually come up with a new business model plan. And that plan was released just a couple of weeks ago. So that's number 1 example. Second example is about the oil companies and the way that their business model is continually being shaken. And this was an example from 2016. There have been other examples of the same industry in the last few years where the oil majors' business model has been put under increasing pressure. So it needs to change. In class number 2, I asked you the question about when is Apple going to go through and stop existing as a company? This was something that came out about 18 months ago as well, and the article is talking about that Apple has been accused of failing in its innovation. It doesn't innovate enough for this world at the moment, this business world. It's relying entirely on iPhone sales. And when they go through and take a hit, this will lead to big problems at Apple because it's not being able to reinvent itself. The innovation is stuck at Apple. Okay, so this is one of the examples we've got of where a business model, if it doesn't get reinvented by some sort of threats, inconceivable threats that they might be, this is where the business model needs to change. Okay, so what exactly is a business model? What does it include? Well, number 1, it includes a mixture of these type of things. Number 1, how does it operate? Number 2, how does it generate its money, its turnover, its value? Number 3, how does it deliver on that? Right? What are the tactics, what are the strategies to go through and deliver value and to go through and provide the operations? A quote that talks about business model says that this is a system of interdependent activities that weave together. Okay, so this could be functional departments, it could be about the key stakeholders within an organization, and also how it bridges the external environment. Okay, so these are the things that come together to form a business model. And in many businesses, we work in silos. We work in one department. That might be HR, might be marketing, might be IT, and we fail to see the bigger picture of the organization. So scenario planning is used by lots of organizations to try and get people from those different silos, those different departments, to come together and understand how they fit together. This is what a business model is. So what are the key elements of that business? This is where I want to draw your attention to what's used by lots of people in leadership and strategy. This is the business model canvas, and it contains many elements, right? Partners, activities, resources, the value proposition, right? The revenue streams, customer segments. Your job in a few moments' time is to work with your group and to try and fill out every single one of those categories. So let me give a brief explanation about what each one of these is. So customer segment number 1. Who are your current customers and who are the customers you would like to have in the future? So 2 different types of customers. Currently, how are they segmented, and which ones do you think the organization is aiming for in the future? Number 2, your value proposition. What is the value of your company, right? Why do you have customers in the first place? So if you're a transportation company, then your key value proposition is getting people from A to B. But increasingly, that value proposition might be something a little bit different. It could be some of the gimmicks that you provide. So if you are in the airline industry, it's not just about getting people from A to B, it's a whole range of other activities that people choose your airline. So that could be the type of air miles, the customer loyalty that you provide. So this is your value proposition, number 2. Okay. Number 3, what channels do you use to go through and interact and to communicate with your customers? There are many different types of communications out there that help you to go through and interact with your customers. Number 4 is about customer relationship. Okay? How do you go through and establish those relationships? One is going to be through your communications, but what other ways do you go through and use to interact with your customers? Right? That's not just the first time, but that's about repeat contact with those customers. So that's number 4, customer relationship. Number 5, revenue stream. Where do you get your money from? Number 6, what resources do you need to be able to operate? So this could be in terms of your employees, that might be in terms of the physical materials that you need to construct a product, that might be the technology that you require, that might be the services that you have to go through and provide, but where do you go through and get those resources to be able to deliver on your value proposition? Number 7, what are the key activities of the organization? What exactly does the organization do to go through and provide that customer relationship and the products and services? Number 8, what are the key partnerships? Most organizations have got links to their suppliers. They might work with what's called a cooperator. That means somebody who is a competition, but you work together to go through and add value to your organization. So what type of key partnerships? Could be with governments, could be with NGOs, it could be with a range of different organizations. And finally, where your costs, your cost structure, right? Where are you going through and spending money for that organization to exist? Right? Employee costs, the costs of transportation, logistics, etc., etc. There are multiple ones there. Okay, so these are the different types of things that go into a business model canvas to get that big picture totality overview. So let me show you what this looks like in practice. So for an organization like Uber, you've got key partners, key activities, value proposition, channels, all of the things we've been talking about a few moments ago. I'd like you to go through and study this for 2 minutes, just to go through and look at how previous students have gone through and done this work, looking at a company like Uber. And the question you're going to have in a few moments' time is, how can you do something similar, but with more detail, for the organizations that you're working on in your groups? Okay. So before you go through and do that, the last thing in this kind of quick lecture bit is to think about the business model. What you've just gone through and considered are visible things, things that you can easily get access to via a web search. But every business has got a slightly hidden element towards that. Not illegal, they've got legal things that they do, but it's a little bit hidden. Let me give you an example. So for McDonald's, many people that look at McDonald's and they think, yeah, okay, fast food. But McDonald's makes a lot of money out of something else which is not fast food. McDonald's is essentially a real estate business. And the previous CFO of McDonald's said, we're not technically in the food business, but we are in the real estate business because their business model relates to this. So if you're looking at your business model canvas for McDonald's and you don't include real estate in your revenue streams, your cost structure, and everything else, then you're completely missing the point of a business like McDonald's, right? This is a glaring example. And there are many other companies like that that might look like they are providing products in one area, but the way they make their money is entirely different. An example in Hong Kong is the MTR transportation system. They're also involved heavily in real estate. They go through and buy land from the government in areas which are quite remote, which are about to be redeveloped. They go through and build a train line to that particular area, and then they go through and build a vast residential block commercial block, retail block, and they go through and rent that out. They make quite a lot of their revenue, sometimes about 20% based around that. So think about this when you're coming up with this type of analysis. Okay? Don't go for the most obvious. Other examples. So in some countries around the world that have got large amounts of agriculture, right, the prices of agricultural products fluctuates quite a lot. And so in some organizations, some farms, they go through and make money out of accommodation for tourists, right? They don't necessarily make the money out of what they plant and what they sell on the farm, right? This is quite an interesting deviation. And the third example, and there are multiple examples out there, but the United States has got a very thriving blood plasma service where they'll go through and take blood from quite often very poor people, and then they sell it on to countries around the world. The GDP that the economist was talking about, the US sells, is about 1 to 2% of the US GDP is selling blood to other countries, right? This is also something which I regard as a little bit hidden element to the way that an economy makes its money, okay? So hidden elements are something that I would like you to go through and spend some time investigating for the next piece of work that you're about to do. So exercise 3.2 is to spend up to 50 minutes in your group. So that's 50 minutes per person to go through and actually work out who's going to look at each of those elements. You need to divide up your group to look at those. I would actually suggest that you divide your group into two, and that one side of the group looks at maybe 4 or 5 of those different elements of the business model canvas, in order to go through and have different perspectives on each of those. And then everybody thinks about hidden elements. How does that organization make money in different ways? One more example for you is Toyota. Some years Toyota makes more money out of currency exchange than it does from selling cars. One other example, movie theaters often makes more money out of selling things like popcorn than they do out of movie theater tickets. Okay, so think about these type of examples and try and be creative, because scenario planning thrives on creativity.